Picture this. Before the Civil War, somewhere in the deep South, a little black boy wakes up before sunrise in a one-room cabin that smells like smoke, damp wood, and leftover grease. His mother is already gone, forced into the fields before dawn, and he's left alone, stomach growling, with no breakfast in sight. Scope News does a deep dive. So he does what generations before him did to survive. He makes his way to the back of the plantation, where the pigs are fed. Workers are pouring boiled corn into wooden troughs. It's slop, meant for hogs. But this boy, like Booker T. Washington once described of himself, eats from it anyway. It's either that or go hungry. On paper, Southern planters claim to care for their slaves' nutritional needs. But in practice, the food was about control, not health. Across the American South, plantation records, slave narratives, and agricultural journals confirm that enslaved people were fed a ration that almost never changed: cornmeal and pork. 3 pounds of pork per week was considered standard: salted, brined, barrel-packed mess pork. It was rarely fresh, and it certainly wasn't the good cuts. What black people were forced to eat were the parts white folks didn't want: intestines, feet, fatback, ears, ribs, hog maw, tails, and chitterlings. These scraps would one day become soul food staples, but in the 1800s they were survival food and nothing more. To the white elite, this diet was ideal. In 1843, a writer calling himself a lover of good ham argued in a Southern agricultural journal that bacon was the most healthy meat diet in the world, particularly for Negroes. Another physician, writing in full medical authority, declared that between Negroes and hogs there seems to be a congeniality, adding that pork was peculiarly appropriate for black bodies. That is not opinion. That is the published racist logic of the antebellum South. Black people were being equated to livestock, and pork was the meat deemed fit to fuel their labor. Behind every ration was a master's hand. Pork was handed out weekly from smokehouses controlled by overseers, measured down to the pound. Plantation journals documented how much meat was issued per person, per month. Some enslaved people recalled having just enough, others never had enough. Even when it was plentiful, it was monotony. The same salted cuts week after week. It wasn't nourishment, it was management. A calculated energy source designed to keep bodies working just hard enough to survive and return to the fields. But even as they forced pork onto the plates of enslaved people, some white physicians knew the truth. Medical journals from the South admitted, in quiet professional corners, that a large amount of disease in the South and West is caused by the excessive use of fat bacon and salt pork. They said it plainly: this diet was killing people. Not just black people, but poor whites too. And yet, nothing changed. Because pork wasn't just food. It was policy. It was profit. Fast forward a century. The year is 1960. In segregated neighborhoods across America, black families are living with the aftermath of that forced diet. Pork is still everywhere. Ribs, neck bones, bacon ends, sausage, ham hocks in the beans. Grocery stores in black communities carry what they always have: the cheapest, saltiest cuts. Fresh food is rare. Doctors start noticing a trend: black patients with hypertension, strokes, kidney disease. At first, they blame genetics, but the deeper truth is in the kitchens. By 1969, the country sees a major outbreak of trichinosis, parasitic infection from undercooked pork. 76 confirmed cases, 16 probable, all traced back to summer sausage from a non-inspected meat processor. This wasn't an isolated incident. Even before that, medical journals like the Journal of the American Medical Association warned that pork remained the leading cause of trichinosis in the U.S. The USDA had spent decades trying to control it. Freezing standards, inspection rules, safe cooking temperatures. European countries had outright banned American pork exports. The fear was real. And while public health campaigns ran quietly in white suburbs, the reality in black America was different. Pork was still the default. Still the cheapest protein on the block. Still tied to culture, family, and poverty. But more and more black people were starting to question it. They were reading, watching, looking around and asking why so many of their loved ones were dying young. Why Big Mama had high blood pressure, why Uncle Ray had a heart attack at 50, and why the corner store was full of pork but empty of fresh produce. Some, like the Nation of Islam, rejected pork entirely, calling it a poison forced onto the bodies of the oppressed. But this awakening wasn't just religious, it was political, cultural, historical. Black Americans were waking up to the fact that the foods they had been conditioned to eat were never designed for health. They were designed for endurance, for work, for survival. And now that survival wasn't enough, health data began confirming what the community already knew. Black Americans were dying disproportionately from diet-related diseases. High salt, high fat, and heavily processed pork were part of that equation. And the medical industry, which had once claimed bacon was ideal for black people, offered little help in reversing the damage. So by the 1960s, something changed. Quietly, in kitchens and grocery store aisles, some black families began to turn away. They didn't always announce it, they didn't always preach it, but they remembered the stories their grandparents told. They remembered the ration pork, the smoked scraps, the diseases, the disrespect. And they made a different choice. Not everyone left pork behind, but enough did to shift the culture, to create a space where pork could be questioned, not worshipped, and where ancestral food could be honored, without being blindly inherited. When people say black folks suddenly stopped eating pork in the 1960s, they miss the point. This wasn't a fad. It was a reckoning with slavery, with science, with survival. It wasn't about taste, it was about truth. The truth that for hundreds of years pork was more than meat. It was a message about what black bodies were worth. And some folks decided they weren't going to eat that message anymore. Scope News tells the truth. Here are the facts. Slave ration records, journals, and historical accounts confirm that enslaved people in the South were regularly issued cornmeal and pork as their primary diet. Booker T. Washington recounted hunger so severe he sometimes ate corn meant for animals. A Southern agricultural writer in 1843 called pork the healthiest meat for enslaved people, while a physician claimed black people and pigs shared a natural compatibility. Southern doctors later admitted pork-heavy diets were a major cause of disease. By the 1960s, the Journal of the American Medical Association warned pork was still the primary cause of trichinosis in the U.S., and a 1969 outbreak confirmed that risk. African Americans, especially in segregated food deserts, suffered high rates of hypertension and heart disease, which were increasingly tied to high-sodium, high-fat diets. The Nation of Islam's teachings were part of the larger dietary shift, but this awakening extended across political, cultural, and medical lines. Legal disclaimer. This content is for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. Scope News relies on archival sources, peer-reviewed historical research, and public records to present material rooted in fact. While every effort has been made to reflect history accurately, viewer discretion is advised. This report may contain references to slavery, racism, and historical trauma that some audiences may find distressing. Scope News does not offer medical advice. Please consult a healthcare provider for dietary decisions.